I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged to be here. I'm encouraged to have the privilege to speak into your life. Um, I'm encouraged to see you up and, Adam, this early in the morning. Um, and for those that are meeting later this week, I'm encouraged that you're in that group and you're staying faithful to, Lord willing, good teaching and good encouragement that will steady and anchor your recovery, because that's what this is about. This is about trying to help you uh, get to a better place and to overcome. Um, uh, we coach you, we guide you, we coach you, and so like many other things in life, having a wise coach and other people on the same journey gets you places. And so it's my prayer that this will be another good talk in this series of many, that will really further strengthen you. Uh, Most of you haven't been around more than maybe 3 years, some maybe four. This particular talk is a handout that I give out to people when I counsel them in the area of recovery. And it's a talk I did 4.5 years ago, and I redid it with quite a few additions. But I really want to help you in the area of understanding a liability that many people in recovery face. Um, and The word is emotional adolescence. That's the concept. And when I was taking my training on addiction recovery, I had the privilege of working under Dr. Doug Weiss, who for years has been one of the foremost counselors in the area and experts. And it was him originally that said this to me, and understand that there is real need for most addicts to grow up, beyond their dysfunction. And I just grabbed one scripture just to help you realize that the idea of growing up emotionally and growing up personally is something that we all need to do in life. But you see there, the Bible does speak of this underdeveloped condition and the need for us to all mature in life. And I've quoted that 1 Corinthians 13 passage, verse 11. Of course, 1 Corinthians 13, just in verses 7 and 8 in that chapter, or the love, love is patient, love is kind, never jealous, envious, boastful, or proud, etc. It gives us that context about what love is. And an addict is actually impatient and unkind, just kind of the opposite. But check this out. And I've got three different translations here, so you can hear three different ways. NIV says this: when I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. When I was a child, NLT, I spoke and thought and reasoned as a child, but when I grew up, I put away childish things. From the Living Bible, it says this: it's like this: when I was a child, I spoke, thought, and reasoned as a child does, but when I became a man, my thoughts grew far beyond those of my childhood, and now I've put away the childish things. So, so, so here's the idea. From basically 12, preteen, to 20, in those 8, 9 years, this is the time that a person goes from kind of a self-centered child. Now, you might have a 10-year-old that's growing in their area of other-centeredness and, being responsible and being mature, etc. But certainly from 12 to 20 is the season when people mature in life. It doesn't mean their maturity is all done by then, but there are key developmental tasks that all people need to go through between 12 and 20 that are going to move you towards maturity, and in our case, in this group, manhood, or just mature adult living, as you move forward. Um, and so and this isn't in your notes, but this is more of what I've added to this talk this morning. You see, there's kind of five areas where we see emotional adolescence. Now, let me just explain why it's connected to the porn and sexual addiction cycle, the PMO cycle. Um, because if a person gets hooked on porn early, and there's a lot of time being distracted there, and a lot of self-soothing of their own life pains and challenges, and they get addicted to acting out with porn and masturbation, and orgasm, and that just continues to spiral. They flatten emotionally. They don't keep maturing and growing as a person. And the time that they should be taking steps towards responsible actions and maturity, etc., they actually stay immature. And there are people that are 55 years of age and they're acting like a 13-year-old, 14-year-old. Why do I have to do that? That's a lot of work. Get up in the morning that early. Were you crazy? I can't do that. Okay, this kind of talk, right? And so they never matured as a person. They flattened emotionally, and they respond as an adolescent because they didn't grow, because they were preoccupied. I also have realized that though it is really true of the PMO cycle and the sexual addict that gets addicted, and most people on this call and other people in the groups, sometime between 10 and 13 or 14, got hooked on the whole PMO cycle, got addicted to porn. That's likely most on this call and most people in the groups. And because of that, it's very likely that there's all kinds of reflection of emotional adolescence in you, along with most of the people in the group, at least until you start to develop and mature. But there's five things that are true of a person, just in broad categories. There's consistent immaturity instead of growing genuine maturity. There's consistent irresponsibility instead of growing genuine responsibility. There's consistent immorality, no restraint on sinful actions, instead of a growing genuine morality. There's a consistent inauthenticity or hypocrisy as opposed to a growing genuine authenticity of being honest. There's a consistent spiritual charade instead of growing genuine spirituality. And the PMO has become a constant negative distraction that invariably they get stuck emotionally at the level of a 13-year-old. You know, 13-year-old. Hey, son, would you mind taking out the garbage? Oh, why should I? Why can't my sister? I did it last week. Yeah, but it's your job. Yeah, but that's not fair. I want to watch this, and spends 5 minutes making excuses about taking out the garbage, and it would have taken 90 seconds to do it. Again, not in your notes. But I just thought this morning I was sharing with my co-leader here. I was sharing with him before we open it up to everybody this morning that I happen to be working with quite a few men right now that are new in their journey. And so some of the thoughts I'm going to give you are things that I've seen in 6 or 8 different men who are coming in for my help, and they haven't even got the document yet called Emotional Adolescence. And these are the things that I've seen that go, oh my goodness, this person is an emotional adolescent. And I'm not even sure if these things that I'm going to tell you are on my final list of signs that you're an emotional adolescent. But I just decided I'm going to tell you what I've seen just in the last 3 or 4 weeks that is indication of a person who is an emotional adolescent. They're still acting like a child. They haven't put away childish things. They haven't taken responsibility. They haven't shown maturity yet. So the person makes excuses for why they're like they are. They're pouty. If it doesn't go like they want, why should I? And then they go, or they have angry outbursts. They get caught, or their spouse asks them a question they don't want to have to answer, so they blow up. They're moody. They're up and down emotionally. They're hot and cold. They're warm and really engaging, and then next thing you know, they're quiet and they're angry. And interesting. They to avoid being caught, they continue bold-faced lies. I didn't do that, and within 5 minutes. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess I did do that, but like because the spouse had the news on them, right? And but bold-faced lies. They blame others, um, to show somehow that it's not their fault. Um, they don't do the work. Matter of fact, in regroup, they sleep in. Um, they go silent. They don't engage because matter of fact, in some cases, they don't even answer questions when their spouse asks them a question. They just clam up and go silent. There's a lack of self-awareness. They actually say things like, I think I got this. I don't know if I really need help. And they come for, 2 weeks to regroup or whatever. And they either avoid getting an accountability partner, or they don't reach out when they're struggling. I have to give this one. Oh, my accountability partner wasn't checking in with me. What am I supposed to do? He's supposed to take care of me, as if it's, the other person, right? And so those are things that I have heard in the last 2 to 3 months with some of the newer people that I'm working with. So you're getting a feel. Now you're going to see a 75. Now I'm not sure that there's no redundancy there. There'll be some that will be similar, but sometimes worded different. But let me get with the big idea. The time, energy, and commitment spent on the porn attraction, and it becomes a preoccupation during adolescence, and it soon becomes a porn addiction. That's the PMO cycle entrenched in your life. It distracts and robs the young person of the time and opportunity that usually is afforded to mature himself or herself into a responsible, selfless adult person. These people today, regardless of age, are emotionally stunted. They're immature, selfish, and have not grown up. Thus, they are stuck in self-pity, excuses, and blaming. They fully need to make the conscious choice to move beyond emotional adolescence. Sometimes I'll say things like this to guys. Listen, that's the adolescent talking. That's excuse making. That's blaming others, right? And so later you'll have the opportunity on your own to think through the following signs of emotional adolescence to see where you stand. Are you a boy or a man? Are you immature or are you mature? Now, years ago, I heard this from Dr. Doug Weiss: boys make excuses, men make plans. It was actually posted in his office. And after I heard that, I thought, oh, that's good. But it's not enough to make plans. A lot of people have lip service and make plans. And so no offense to Dr. Weiss, but I changed it for my world. And what's in my office is boys make excuses and men make changes. They go beyond just making plans. And so here's some questions here. Where are you at? What is your level of maturity emotionally? What developmental tasks have you yet to master? What is weird is that you've been lying to yourself for many years. And so right now, you might not even be able to see your own selfishness and emotional immaturity. Porn created such a deep impact on you in these early formative years that you are really not self-aware. You pulled away from others because you didn't want to get caught. You pulled away from even peers because you didn't want, maybe the shame of them knowing. You didn't want to be discovered. And so you lived in secrecy and shame. You started to develop these sexual views and appetites, and they were all self-absorbed, one-sided, and on demand. So you see how the immaturity grows and the selfishness grows. You started to use porn to medicate your own pain instead of working through any hurts, rejections, and challenges of your growing up years. But also you just plain repeated PMO enough that it became an addiction in and of itself, a biological addiction that you were just drawn back for more. That still plateaued you emotionally because you didn't take the time and took responsibility, not just to work through the porn back then, but all kinds of things in life it affects. And as it happened, you begin to deeply objectify women as tools of your trade for your self-stimulation. And through the porn use, instability and insecurity grew in you. The opposite of maturity, instability, insecurity. Further, whatever spiritual roots you may have had there from your family or a youth group or whatever, you're 10, 11, 12, 13, coming from a Christian home, maybe being involved in Sunday school, church, youth group, summer camp, whatever opportunities you might have had to deepen your faith in those teen years, they were canceled by your porn preoccupation because porn makes you feel unworthy and distant from God. And in your heart, you knew this acting out with yourself in this way and thinking about girls in this way wasn't right, even though it had never even been talked about. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. And yeah, so the result, you may have, or likely were, relationally dwarfed emotionally and underdeveloped spiritually, with a juvenileness in your approach to life, stagnated in your maturity process. You've become stuck here. This is emotional adolescence. And again, boys make excuses and men make changes. So I created this, some of the many signs, evidences of the reality of emotional adolescence in a person. And I just kept listing ones. I actually reread them this morning and tried to get rid of any redundancy. There is some overlap, but sometimes worded one way catches a guy and worded another way doesn't catch the same guy, but they're kind of similar. So allow the occasional redundant statement. But the idea is that there are signs of emotional adolescence as you try to take steps towards recovery, or as you maintain a deeply rootedness in your addiction. There are signs of this emotional immaturity. And so the instructions are going to be that on your own, you're going to honestly assess your level of maturity by circling the numbers, the indicators of emotional adolescence that you see in yourself. So if number one is true of you, you circle it. It might surprise you how emotionally stunted you are as you start coming out of the addictive fog. Remember, part of it is if you're in addictive fog, you're in denial that you could ever have emotion out of me. Look, I have this job I do, and I am consistent every day to this job. And well, some guys can't even put a job together. They're not consistent there, and the inconsistency is beyond just at home and with relationships with others. But yeah, so the more of these signs are present, the more your thoughts, attitudes, words, and action reflect that of a 14-year-old, 13-year-old, whatever. You get the point. Let's take steps into genuine personhood or manhood. Further, I challenge you to invite your spouse, and I would add your accountability partner, to share their observations of you by circling any signs of emotional adolescence that they see in you. I mean, if you go way back to the famous Aristotle, he said this: an unexamined life is not worth living. In other words, we need to be able to look at ourselves and grow, look at ourselves honestly, and continue to mature and face those things. And so invite your spouse and the accountability partner to share their observations by circling signs that they have seen in you. And as they do, take it like a man, listen and learn. Yeah. So um, I'm going to just go and read, and you're going to have the opportunity to, in your mind's eye, just go, not me, that's me, not me, no, not me, that's me, and you just, because this isn't a researched tool yet, it's a directional piece. It's not like, well, if you hit 21, we found that you're clearly an emotional adolescent. What I know is that the more you circle, if you're being honest with yourself, there's no doubt. I mean, it's true that if you have maybe two, three, or four, all you are is just selfish and self-centered, and you're not a full-on emotional adolescent. But so just in your mind, as I read them through, no explanation, I'm just going to read them through, and you just go yes and no in your mind. Makes a lot of excuses, tries to create a justifiable reason for any shortcoming or mishap. Number two, minimization of the damage they've caused. They don't grasp the magnitude of their selfish behavior. Three, consistent selfishness expressed. They are self-absorbed. Life is all about them. Four, very proud, unwilling to humble themselves, admit they have a problem and get help. Five, low self-regulation, little self-control over their impulses, feel they are helpless to their addiction. Six, no deferred gratification. They deserve a break now. They need an instant fix. They can't wait. Seven, manipulation of others. Think they are smarter. Try to explain away what truly is their problem. Eight, hides or downplays mistakes. Great at telling half-truth and massaging the story to avoid guilt. Nine, low pain tolerance and thus emotionally weak. It's too much. I can't bear this. It's excruciating. Real words said to me. Number 10, they express tears and emotional breakdowns, but it's more about their pain and not about damage they've caused or real remorse. 11, it's their pleasure, their release, their contentment that is king. Their needs are first. They want their candy. 12, they're impulsive, reactionary, and then says, I couldn't stop myself instead of I didn't stop myself. 13, bases decisions on feelings, not what is valued. They love the addiction more than their spouse. 14, defiance. They refuse to be controlled, coached, or corrected. 15, moody. They're up and down emotionally, lots of highs and lows. 16, entitlement. I deserve this. I have a right to this. I shouldn't have to suffer, restrain myself. 17, comparison to others. How come they can, or why can't I, or it's really poor me thinking. 18, no empathy, not very good at seeing or feeling the hurts that they've caused. No persistence. 19, if it gets hard or too much work, they falter or bail. 20, they avoid taking responsibility for their mistakes. They don't own things that they've done wrong. 21, they're defensive and reactionary when criticized. They refuse to see or they start to justify their mistakes. 22, they're impatient with people's delay in forgiving them. I apologize. What more do you want me to do? 23, bold-faced lying to cover their wrong behavior. They're addicted to lying as much as addicted to porn. 24, avoiding others. They project the guilt to others. They often blame their spouse for their addiction. 25, they whine about their pain, even with a whiny voice. Seriously, I've heard them have a whiny voice. It's too hard. I can't do this. You don't understand. My addiction is stronger than others. Okay. 26, exclusive trials. No one understands. My problem is worse. If they only knew how hard it was for me. 27, emotional outbits, fits, angry reaction, even rage. They hate the fact they're being caught. 28, deflecting to others, often projecting to parents, siblings, or others why they fail. 29, procrastination. They just don't follow through. They make a last minute effort or just say they ran out of time, but they don't follow through. They lie to themselves. They make their own version of reality or truth. It's self delusion. They believe their own story. 31, lack of follow through with their commitments. Their talk is cheap. 32, they delay in doing the work. They make promises in person that don't ever get followed up on. 33, serious lack of effort or time, or they overestimate the effort that they've put in. 34, they need accolades and constant encouragement to keep going. Every little step needs to be celebrated, and they remind you. 35, low willpower. They don't put in consistent effort. They need constant propping up. 36, feels like the world should celebrate even their most basic step of recovery. 37, they overvalue any change that they make. They cite it as a reason that they're not going to do any more recovery work because look what they've done. They've done enough now. 38, they give up early and give up easily. They don't push through hard times. Even if it gets tough, they bail. 39, it's not my fault. The victim mentality, poor me, it rules their subconscious. 40, they're not self-aware. They don't often even see their emotional adolescence. Their blind spots are huge. 41, they rationalize their way to justify their choices. They work to make the addiction make sense for them and try to explain it to others. 42, no apologies. Asking for forgiveness or saying they're sorry is often never said or even said without remorse. They pout and feel sorry for themselves. They need affirmation, applause, and any changes. Talk is cheap. They have big speeches, even emotional reactions, but it looks like remorse, but there's no real changes. 46, they underestimate the damage caused. They just can't grasp the pain of their betrayal. 47, they're surprised why others don't forgive and forget. They point out that others aren't forgiving them. 48, they seem to be unable to work through pain. Their pain is the worst and no one understands. 49, it's so hard. I can't do this. It's too much. What do you expect of me? 50, they're very impatient in the process of recovery. They want a quick fix. It's an easy road. And if it's not, it's too hard. I can't handle it. 51, they objectify people. They're not souls or persons, but they're pawns in their game. 52, they react poorly when they feel they're being told what to do. They don't have to do. Matter of fact, they say, I don't have to do what you tell me to do. They measure themselves by their good intentions and minimize their poor choices and lack of actions. Well, they intended their good intentions. They measure their recovery growth. The measure of the recovery growth is miscued, usually by being overestimated and exaggerated, all that they've done. Matter of fact, they even lie to people in their group of what they've done that week. I think I was 5 or 6 days I prayed, and in all honesty, it was only 2 or none. They delay sorry, where is it? Yeah, now 55. They avoid conflict, direct confrontation, and hard conversations like it's better not to talk. 56, they misjudge, downplay, are unable to grasp the impact of their actions have had on others. They have low empathy. 57, delaying or procrastinating the needed steps to get going in recovery. They are the king of excuses. 58, avoid making phone calls, reaching out to other men who could support them in crisis. They're too proud. 59, They highlight, even brag to others about the good steps they have taken to project a better image. 60, famous for not reaching out for help and recovery. I can do this on my own mentality cripples their growth. 61, they can't humble themselves enough to reach out. They say they don't want to be a bother, but they're still struggling. 62, they feel judged by God and immobilized by guilt and shame. They give up believing that what God has for them. 63, invariably they feel sorry for themselves, and this becomes their delay in moving ahead in recovery. 64, they have a problem coming clean. They often live in denial of the need to be fully honest. 65, they're still hiding. They're keeping secrets. They only reveal part of the story when directly asked. 66, chronically hard on themselves, feeling that somehow self-punishment helps in making amends. A lot of negative self-talk that people pick up, and they're always talking negative. It's almost like, well, if I talk bad about myself, it'll look like I'm recovering. They posture their hardships to have others feel sorry for them. They want sympathy. Focus more on the failure mentality, and they get stuck there. They can't or won't overcome and move on. They get stuck feeling sorry for themselves. 69. 70, they make a big deal of the changes they've made. They broadcast it, they repeat it, they milk it for weeks. 71, they love their addiction more than their spouse, as seen by their actions. They fail to make the effort to change. 72, they've never learned to say no to urges because they're addicted. They got addicted to the porn masturbation cycle before their moral compass developed. 73, inability to put others first, but they live with a clear, self-centered edge. 74, strongly compelled by their sexual cravings, seemingly incapable of saying no to temptation. 75, low self-denial and lack of an overcoming spirit where the mind and the will begin to control impulses. Now note, this list is still in the process of development. You can help me with any missed attitudes or actions or what you have seen to be true in your life that indicates the presence of emotional adolescence. Forward these to me to help strengthen this document. Friends, are you still emotionally acting like a 13, 14-year-old? Do you have some growth to do in the area of maturity, responsibility, morality, authenticity, and spirituality? My prayer would that you would examine your life. I love what it says in Psalm 139, 23 and 24, where the psalmist David said, "Search me, O God, and know my heart." Start there, the heart. And then it goes on to say, "Examine me and show me my anxious thoughts." That's the mind. And then see if there be any wicked way in me. Any wicked way is any behavior that's inappropriate. See if there's any wicked way in me. And then lead me in the way everlasting. May you have the courage to pray that prayer that David said, "God, search my heart, search my mind, search my actions, and then lead me in the way everlasting." My prayer is that you would continue to mature and take responsibility for your needed growth, for your mistakes. You'd make amends responsibly, that you would become a person that people want to be around because you're growing up. Hope that was an encouragement to you today.